Hello, my name is Jake Stoner and welcome to Project RWG, a crafting system designed for first-person shooters that can also be implemented into other Unreal Engine projects. During this video I will talk about my project and what I had done. When first starting this project I came up with some aims and objectives I wanted to achieve. I wanted to create a game mechanic that is reusable and I can re-implement into other projects that I may create. I came up with a crafting system where a player can make their own guns using randomized parts. I came up with 5 main areas I wanted to focus on: the inventory, the crafting, some random parts, enemies, and drops. After that, I would focus on the smaller stuff. I created a video showing off my project. Here it is. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the inventory system. In order to access the inventory, you can press I. This shows all of the slots as well as the equipped gun stats. We can pick up items using the E key when hovering over them, and these will be added to the inventory. We can drag these around in the inventory and move them to wherever we want. We cannot drag out of the inventory, but we can move around. We can then close the inventory with I again and continue playing our game. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the crafting system. So as we can see, we currently have a magazine, a body and a barrel. So we need a handle and a sight, which is optional. We can then go over to the crafting table, press E to open it, and start adding these to the slots. We can do this by pressing right click and use on the items we want. And then as you can see, we can get our gun now. We could add the sight if we wanted to, but it's entirely optional. Just go ahead and add it. Now we have a gun with the correct stats. We can then go ahead and right click that to equip it. We now have our created gun. Let us now try creating 2 different weapons and see how they compare to each other. Let's take the best barrel and the worst barrel that's on offer, which is probably this one. And we want a submachine gun, and let's create another submachine gun to properly compare the two. We can take 2 different magazines, so this one, this handle, and this handle, as well as this one. We don't want any sights. We can go over and we can compare the two. So let's put in a submachine gun with the barrel of frailty. You can see that it's just a damage. It will have a damage per second of 5.7. If you were to use a different barrel, let's say this one, the damage per second goes up to 42.6. We can then fill out the rest of the parts, and we can replace the parts whenever we want during the crafting phase. We can then click the part and we can add another gun with different parts, and we can see the 2 different stats of the guns. Let's start off with the worst of the 2 guns, and as we can see, it's very slow to fire and doesn't do a lot of damage. This one, by equipping it, the old one gets added to our inventory and the new one gets equipped. The model has changed and we can continue to fire. As we can see, the fire rate is a lot faster, as well as doing a bit more damage. Parts can also drop from enemies when killed, and the type that it drops is depending on the rarity, as shown here. Blue being rare, which is this one. To determine which part got which rarity, I went through each of the type of items and found the average. So for example, for barrels, I went through every single item and calculated the average damage and the average fire rate. The ones with the highest scores got legendaries, and the ones with the lowest scores got commons, and so forth. As we can see, the Barrel of Perfection is a legendary, which means its stats are generally going to be higher than the other rarities. This is not always the case, as an item could spawn with a low roll, while another one could spawn with a high roll, meaning that a rare could in theory be better than a very rare. A good example of this is the barrel of randomized. This type of barrel has a minimum damage multiplier of 0.25 and a maximum of 3, and the same goes for its fire rate. This means that it could have spawned with any number between 0.25 and 3, and it has chosen 2.05. With that in mind, I created a weight loot table that is attached to the enemies. This causes the enemies to drop parts depending on their rarity at different chances. So a legendary would have a smaller number and a smaller chance to drop than say a common. If we were to kill a few enemies, we can see this in action. Let's kill this one, and luckily we got a very rare. If we were to kill a few more, this one we got an uncommon, and we'll go through and kill the rest. After going through and killing all the enemies in the area, I collected all of the parts, and these are the results. I got 3 commons, 3 uncommons, a rare, and 2 very rares, but not a single legendary. As we can see, this kind of works, and we got about average luck. As I am in the editor, I can press escape to quit the game, to reload it. If I then press to play again, we can see all of the items have changed. To show this again, you can see that this one is a barrel of speed with a 2.29 fire rate modifier. If we were to exit and play again, we can now see that this one is now a barrel of normality and there is no barrel of speed here. I also imported my project into a previous project I created, and it's something I did not work on at all during this module, apart from importing project RWG, this project, into it. I created a video and I've shown it here. In order to test my project, I decided to import it into Scrapped, a third-person shooter I worked on last year. It should be mentioned that I did not work on this at all during this year, apart from importing my project into it. Let's go ahead and click play, Cityscape, and as you can see, project RWG has been successfully imported into this project. Let's go ahead and take the parts, and if we wanted to, we could craft a gun. However, because this current gun isn't very good, I'm going to wait and deal with the enemies with this starting gun, as well as the helpful turrets. As we can see, enemies have dropped parts. Let's pick these up. Let's take this barrel. I don't want anything else from there. I don't want any of those. Over time, these will disappear. Let's go ahead and now see what having this barrel means for our damage. Now we've got 54 damage, a lot better than our current one, or slightly better than our current one. Let's go ahead and equip it and continue killing the enemies. Let's place a few more turrets so I don't lose. And let's have a look at these parts. Let's take this site as it's quite good, and there's nothing else there I want. The old ones have disappeared, and we can continue with the game. There's a few more turrets. Let's take this handle, and let's try creating a new gun with the parts. Let's take this one, we need a magazine, which we do not have, and a barrel. I don't want to make a handgun. Magazine there, we'll take that one, and now all we need is to find a body. As we can see, this works really well. However, a few fixes need to be done, such as increasing the time between waves so that I have more time to look at items and craft, as well as making it more clearer when parts drop. Overall, I am very happy with how my project turned out. Thank you for watching.